What's up, guys? This is sixth period on Thursday. I'm getting an error that it's not getting the highest upload bit rate, so the video might be choppy, but I think it'll still work. There's not a ton of movement in here anyway, so I'm going to show a little bit of today's assignment, but first I'm going to show two poems. This quarter we're going to look at some poetry, and I want you guys to see a nice variety. You have two that I posted last time, and it was one old and one new, one male and one female, trying to get some different styles and so on as well. And I asked a question. It was just like, hey, what do you notice? Something about the alliteration, the rhyme, the style of any of those. Today I'm going to show two more and then give a different assignment. So let's open these guys. First, we're going to look at a sonnet. Sonnet 23, but the number doesn't mean anything. It's just Shakespeare wrote a bunch of sonnets, and later when people put them in a book, they gave them numbers, but he didn't number it, and it doesn't really mean anything. Most of the time when people are referring to the sonnets, they'll just say the first line. Okay, and that's true for a lot of poems. Like if you're ever talking about Emily Dickinson, she didn't have titles, and you just say the first line. You just say, oh, it's now I can't even think of an Emily Dickinson line. They say that time assuages. I dwell in possibility. One of those. So anyway, this sonnet is the same format as all of them, which is you have 14 lines. You have A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, etc. rhyme scheme. But they're all about different things. Some of them are very wonderful, loving poems about how you should get married and have children and that kind of thing. And some of them near the end are more sad. And I feel betrayed, and I feel sick, and I feel terrible. This one's one of the earlier ones, and let's read it and see how it goes. As an unperfect actor on the stage, who with his fears put beside his part, or some fierce thing replete with too much rage, whose strength's abundance weakens his own heart. So I, for fear of trust, forget to say the perfect ceremony of love's rite, and in mine own love's strength seem to decay, or charge with burden of mine own love's might. Oh, let my books be then the eloquence and dumb presagers of my speaking breast, who plead for love and look for recompense, more than that tongue that moreeth more expressed. Oh, learn to read what silent love hath writ. To hear with eyes belongs to love's fine wit. Quickly, I'm going to change my webcam here. I noticed that it's like covering the text a little bit. You guys can't see it if you're in the room. It shows my second monitor, but when it's online, the webcam is in the corner, and this one is too big. It's covering some of this stuff, or maybe I'll move it to the other corner. So anyway, this sonnet does the same thing that all of them do, whether they're happy or sad or whatever. It introduces an idea and then sort of fiddles with it for a couple lines. And then in the middle, line 7 or 8-ish, it gives the twist. They call that the turn, or the volta from Italian, which is like, but now here's the thing that's going to take it in a new direction. It doesn't always switch from good to bad or bad to good, but it just says, here's how we're going to look at it. So this poem, you could talk about it for weeks, but I'm going to keep it simple. This is about someone who is in love and is almost like too in love. It's too strong of a feeling. It's too much of a heavy weight that the person can't express it. I just can't say how I feel, because when I get a chance, I just feel like too nervous, too scared, too burdened by this, that it almost makes it worse. If I loved you less, it would be easy, but if I love you this much, it's too hard. So you say, what are we going to do? We're going to compare it. In a poem, you very often have, and this is going to be the theme for today, you very often have comparisons. I don't care too much if it's a metaphor or a simile or what specific type, but it's all about, I'm trying to describe a thing, and I'm going to use other things to get a new angle on it. So this person in love is like an actor overcome with stage fright. So you know exactly what to say if you're an actor. You don't have to improvise. It's all on the script for you. But what if you're afraid of the audience, of what they think? Maybe it's your first time. Maybe who knows who's out there, or the lights are so bright or whatever, and you don't know how to express it. Then he says, or some fierce thing replete with too much rage, whose strength's abundance weakens his own heart. You're like an animal who's just so angry that you just start shaking and growling, and you burn up your own energy doing that, and you don't actually get to fight or eat or chase or do whatever this animal was trying to do. And then it keeps going, and it compares the love to some kind of ceremony in a church, or you have the love as a physical burden weighing you down, and then you go into line 9. Here starts the new part where it says, aha, so what am I going to do? I'm going to use poetry. A lot of the poems that Shakespeare wrote are about poems. It's like, aha, well, I'm going to solve this by writing it down. So, oh, let my books be then the eloquence and dumb presagers of my speaking breast. So I can't say it out loud in the moment, but I can write it down, and I'll, even if you don't see it, somebody will see it, like us 400 years later will get the idea. Okay? And so, like I said, we can look at this forever because the sonnets are nice and packed with a lot of good stuff in each line. But let's go on to the other one, because I think if you see different examples, you'll see what I'm talking about. Here's another poem from a different century, a different, actually this, I was going to say a different place, but I think this was in the same. Sylvia Plath, who we're going to read, was an American, but she lived in England for the last couple years of her life, and I think this one was written in England, so maybe not a different place. Let's read this one, and it's about an accident, cutting, chopping on a cutting board with a kitchen knife, and one day she got her thumb accidentally, and this is a poem about that. What a thrill! My thumb instead of an onion. The top quite gone, except for a sort of hinge of skin, a flap like a hat, dead white, then that red plush. Little pilgrim, the Indians axed your scalp. Your turkey wattle carpet rolls straight from the heart. I step on it, clutching my bottle of pink fizz. A celebration this is. Out of a gap, a million soldiers run, redcoats every one. Whose side are they on? Oh, my homunculus, I am ill. I have taken a pill to kill the thin, papery feeling. Saboteur, kamikaze man. The stain on your gauze Ku Klux Klan babushka darkens and tarnishes, and when the bald pulp of your heart confronts its small mill of silence, how you jump. Trepan veteran, dirty girl, thumb stump. Some things are very different. We have short lines where the other one was an iambic pentameter with the nice full 10-syllable or 11-syllable lines. But some things are similar. This one has metaphors and similes. This one has rhyme, even though it's not in a classic sonnet pattern. It has lots of rhymes. You see right here and here. You see right here and here. And sometimes it would even have 3 in a row. And this poem is almost nothing but comparison. It's like, okay, I got to cut, and now we just go and say, what is it? What is it like this? Is it like that? Is it like this other thing? It's like a flap, like a hat, this little piece of skin, or it's dead. It's not. I guess it's dead, this little piece of skin that isn't having blood coming to it anymore. But then we get further away, and it's not physically like these things, but maybe it's more in a story sense, like, first of all, we do have physical descriptions. We have, like, the blood is described as little soldiers, red coats. Maybe the blood cells are little red blood cells, and they each have their own little red coat on. And I've taken a pill. Okay, maybe she did literally take a painkiller or something. But then you've got stuff like saboteur, which means somebody who's committing sabotage, somebody who's putting a, you know, in America we say putting a wrench in the works or something like that. Is there a person? Is there a saboteur? No, but maybe this injury is like ruining your day. Then you got the moving forward in time. If you put a bandage on it, this bandage is a white piece of gauze that immediately turns red, and it's hiding the violence underneath, but it's trying to be clean. And so you get gauze, which is the literal thing, Ku Klux Klan, because it's like you're putting this white sheet that hides, you know, horrible things underneath. Babushka is a great word. It's one of those Eastern European scarves that you might see like old women wear in a Russian photograph or something. And then by the end we get some more single descriptions. Most of them are only 2 words. And I love this stuff at the end. Trepanned veteran. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this word, trepan. Trepanning was a medical procedure. I guess it still is sometimes, where if someone has swelling in the brain, where the brain is really inflamed and taking up more space and it's causing a lot of problems, what they would do is like drill a hole in the skull. I know this sounds insane, but in archaeological digs they find people who have like a hole in their skull, but it's healed. Like clearly this thing worked, and then the person lived for years, and it would you know, heal afterwards. And now we can probably fix that with antibiotics instead of mechanical solutions, but it is kind of interesting. And so you might think of like the thumb as like this sort of person, and the part that got chopped off was a little piece of the head. And then his thumb stump is back to reality, but it's also back to a rhyme. It's back to the beginning. It really wraps things up. And like I said in the rattlesnake poem, even if you don't have rhymes all the way through, you can throw one in at the end to sort of put a cherry on top. So anyway, you guys might get something from one of these. If you don't, that's okay. We're going to have variety, lots of stuff each day. Hang on, I'm getting a phone call. Hello? Yep. Sure. Rachel, you're going to go to the attendance office. Okay, what were we saying here? We got... oh, I almost clicked delete. This is your assignment for today, so here's the deal. We're going to write a poem. Okay, and I'm actually calling it a poem this time. You know, in the last 2 assignments, I called it like description, or you're just writing lines. But this time we're going to actually call it a poem, and I hope that doesn't increase the tension or anything. But what you're going to do is pick a topic, and it could be literally anything. And then you're going to compare it to other things, at least 2 other things, like how Shakespeare compared his feeling to an actor and a beast, or how Sylvia Plath compared her cut to, 20 different things in the poem. You're going to pick one, and let's show maybe an example or 2. I don't want to make this video super long, but I don't want to give you an assignment without showing how you might do it. So for this, you can choose to pick up one of your assignments from the last few and go in that direction. So you could take the description of the action scenes that you start. Maybe you started and you had like 1 or 2 good lines, and you take that in a new direction. Or you can take the one from the photograph in a new direction. Or you could start with something new. If you say, I don't know about those, I don't like those, I have a new idea, that's totally fine. So let's open up one of those. Oh yeah, I already opened this a minute ago. So in the photograph assignment, I said, let's go outside, take some pictures. And this was one that I posted from a previous class, where I just went and took pictures of stuff around the building that I thought was cool. So how might we, if we were going to write a poetic description of one of these, and remember, you can take it off in a new direction. So you can use this as a start, but then you can go off into talking about, time and the universe and whatever you want. How about this one? We got a nice photo of a leaf. And to me, the first thing I notice about this is that everything looks like two-dimensional. Like the leaf is very flat. It looks like a paper cutout. Even the leaves are like very flat. It's almost like in a video game when they have sort of fake 3D scenery where it's like 2D assets that are arranged in a way that looks kind of nice. This, to me, looks like a piece of paper or a piece of gold. What if it's just gold? Actually, the word for that, if you have really thin gold that you put on top of something, the word for that is gold leaf. Yes, interesting. So gold leaf is sometimes what you see added onto little trinkets, or even sometimes they put it on food. You ever see those weird videos where it's like, this restaurant has a gold burger for $95,000 or something? That's called gold leaf. And actually the word leaf in English used to be the word we would use for a piece of paper. So they would call this a leaf a couple hundred years ago. And now we use the word page, but every once in a while you'll still see verbs like leafing through a book or leafing through a wallet or something. And that's because leaf was originally the word we used for page. And this does look kind of like a piece of paper. It looks like something that doesn't have a lot of texture. If I use this photo, this other photo where I zoomed in on a leaf, it really doesn't look flat, and it doesn't look papery, and it doesn't look gold. It looks like a biological thing with curves and curls and veins and all of that stuff. So it really depends on what your photo gives you or what you choose to take a picture of. But back to this one. If I was going to describe this straightforwardly, I would say, well, it's a leaf and it looks flat and blah, blah, blah. But if I was going to go into poetry mode, I would take it as a comparison, and then I would keep going a little bit further. So let's say I wanted to say it was a flat gold, thing. And, well, what does gold have associated with it? Gold is valuable. I could say something about the value of this, even though this is a piece of leaf that's fallen off a tree and it's kind of trash and people step on it and it's going to be eaten by bugs and fall into the circle of life and probably gone in 2 days. What if it wasn't? What if you treat this thing as a valuable commodity and maybe it's a prized home for some little microscopic creature that lives on it for its whole lifespan? Or maybe a bird picks it up and uses it as part of its nest, and it does this wonderful job of protecting children. Okay. Also, it looks very dry, doesn't it? It looks like it could just burst into flames at any moment, and that's kind of something you might mention. Speaking of that, this other photo, I was looking at this as like another candidate we could use. This looks like it could just burst into flames at any moment, or maybe it already has. I took this picture of a cigarette butt, and what do you notice right away? A couple things, to me at least. Number one, the color. Like this little gold color on the logo is exactly the same gold as the dead leaves and sticks around it. I think that's kind of interesting. It's almost like, this real industrial, commercial, mass-produced product is almost the same color as like this natural thing that just fell to the ground last night. It's very contrasting with those. And these things are all dead, right? They're brown, they're that color because they're all dead, and they used to be green and they lost it. And this cigarette, well, it's almost like the killer. It makes things die. It gives you cancer. It's a real cause of that kind of thing. If I was going to look at this though, just in terms of like pure visual, sometimes you want to be less thoughtful in terms of what does it mean, and you just want to go like, what does this look like? What do I see? And to me, when I look at this, if I was in a dream, if I was being very abstract, this looks like a rocket, like a booster, like it just shot a missile out of there, like it's the tube. You know those little fireworks that you get on 4th of July that have like 6 little tubes, and you light it and it goes for the display? This looks like one of those, like it's shot out some Roman candles and it's got this charred remains. And I guess with those, nobody ever looks at it afterwards, and you just throw it in a bucket of water and then you throw it in the trash. But this to me looks like that. It almost looks like, it's fired something out of it, and I guess it was literally on fire when it was being used. So take your descriptions 1 or 2 steps further. Don't just say like, oh, it looks like another color thing, or it looks like another item, but what does it mean? Where does it go? And honestly, the best ones are the ones that are the least obvious. If you use a little bit of normal logic, that's fine, but if you use a little bit of dream logic and you use a little bit of association and take it 1 or 2 steps more than you would normally, that's when the poems get into the good stuff. So think about what Plath did in her poem, or think about what you've seen in other examples. I'm going to end this video now because it's going to be super long, but that's our assignment, is to make a poem. The requirements are very simple. 10 lines, just as a nice minimum. You can do 100 if you want. Give it a title, and if you're thinking of a real amazing, beautiful title, that's wonderful. But if you can't think of one, just say what it is. We've had a poem called Rattlesnake. We've had a poem called Cut. It can just be like straightforward. And that really helps, because then the poem doesn't have to be straightforward. The poem can be as mysterious as it wants, and you still know that people have an image in their mind because you said it in the title.